I've lost track of the number of times one politician or another has said some bullcrap like, we just need to pass insert legislation of the minute here, gun law, as if the liberal-leaning cities and states aren't going soft on crime and defunding everything. Seriously, they will arrest men in their own damn yards for nothing except having a gun on their own property. Really, no actual crimes, yet invading criminals can murder a 12-year-old girl in Texas, and the actual criminals are offered bond. Time and time again, we are hearing stories of criminals going on all kinds of violent crime sprees, getting caught, and then being released immediately, like this is catch and release fishing. Crime is rampant in our nation right now. The folks in the White House have been trying to say otherwise, but it turns out that the FBI has been fudging the stats for quite a few years with a strange and huge discrepancy in the numbers during the Biden administration. And politicians will stand on their false statistics soapbox of murdered children and teens and claim that guns are to blame and the biggest problem in America. Little or nothing is said about the criminal pulling the trigger. No, it is the damn gun's fault, and that is why we should ban. Hell, just take your pick, whether it's AR, AK, Glock, slingshot, or the dreaded assault whoopee cushion. Politicians are always going to politic. So stick with me, folks. I am going to get a bit spicy with this one. But before we do jump into this happy little number, today's video is brought to you by Blackout Coffee Company. Blackout is your 2A-friendly Florida-based coffee roaster built on traditional values, helping to protect your rights and keep their customers awake, not woke. They have an amazing selection of coffees, teas, and hot chocolates, and even partner with some of your favorite channels and gun rights groups to help support the Second Amendment. And using code LibertyDoll gets you a one-time 20% off discount on your purchase. So to help support the channel, go to blackoutcoffee.com/LibertyDoll. Now that Trump has won the election and will presumably take the White House in January, barring some crazy shit happening, which honestly I'm still not ruling out, especially with Russia promising nukes by Christmas. Yeah, that happened. There's been a lot of talk of cutting federal jobs, slashing regulations, and even possibly getting rid of things like the Gun Control Office of Safety and bullshit. Needless to say, the bureaucrats are shaking in their boots. Now, the crazy thing is, if you're curious as to how many laws there actually are, there are so many that no one actually knows. Which seems pretty fucking ridiculous. The number depends on whether or not you count only official laws passed by Congress, or all the regulations, or all the crimes and statutes along with it, but current estimates are around 300,000 if you count everything. I mean, no wonder they say that the average person breaks 7 laws a week. It sounds like it would be hard not to. And in a couple minutes, I'm going to tell you how many of those 300,000 laws pertain to firearms. Now, this is all under the guise of safety, right? So I thought it would be fun to compare that number with the number of rules and regulations coming out of the office that claims to be about nothing but safety. Or at least one of them. So just to provide a little bit of perspective here are some statistics straight from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, website. They cover virtually every type of job site there is in at least a few respects, from construction, maritime, agriculture, and general industry. It doesn't matter if you are getting gas at your local pump and run or buying groceries. If you are working in an auto repair shop or using a hydraulic press in a factory, OSHA will have a regulation for you to cover your butt and keep you safe. Allegedly. So having said that, one might ask, well, just how many regulations does OSHA have? And that is a good question. It's another one of those that people aren't exactly sure, which to me says that we need some cuts, but regardless, it's a pretty big number. Either way, it is pretty damn close to 1,000, since it does change occasionally and will sometimes even drop a few as certain regulations get combined or listed as obsolete or obsolete equipment is phased out. But it does usually only rise, however slowly. Either way, the balance is usually around 1,000. So these hundreds of rules are what it takes to keep us safe from workplace mishaps. So why was I so upset throughout this video? Well, because the next set of statistics are what got me a little fired up. You see, across this great nation of ours, we keep getting told, well, we need common sense gun reform or some other garbage like that. Every time some ass does something stupid. And bear in mind, I do believe that going into a random movie theater, church, school, or random job place and opening fire on people is one of the lowest forms of evil there is. However, the tool used didn't cause the crime. Some did. Still, it's the tool that is blamed. It doesn't matter that the same type of tool is usually what puts an end to those situations. Doesn't matter. So what do? Do we pass more and tougher laws? Well, maybe, and I know this gets said all the time, maybe we should just enforce a few of the gun laws already on the books. Now, the government seems to have a problem doing that, either doing it overzealously through entrapment, zero tolerance, or demonizing literal clerical errors like forgetting the date or not fully crossing a T. Or sometimes they don't do it at all, like not sending criminal or mental health information required by law to the NICS system, not fully investigating legitimate threats that are made. I mean, it's an odd occurrence, isn't it, that pretty much every big violent event in the last however long, they were all already known to law enforcement. Some of them had even been questioned by the FBI. Maybe at that point they were bribed and paid to actually do the thing. We don't know. That's just a conspiracy theory. Either way, we definitely know for sure that they are letting violent criminals roam around on bail, where they often strike again before court appearances. I mean, how many times do you read that in the news a week these days? So there is definitely an issue with uneven enforcement. But maybe the problem with not being able to enforce gun laws is just that there are too many. Because of those roughly 300,000 laws I mentioned at the beginning, about 20,000 of them are strictly about firearms. And yes, I did not stutter. 20,000, my friends, 20,000 laws that regulate a constitutional right, a right that, quite honestly, exists even without that fancy piece of paper it was written on. So the literal Office of Safety that is supposed to keep everyone's safety at work has about 1,000 laws. And this constitutional right has 20,000. More than 20,000 gun laws already in existence, but politicians will have you believe that we just need that one extra law, that one cherry on top of the cake to keep our children safe. So come on, ladies and gentlemen, and say it with me, bullshit. Laws have never kept an evil person from doing evil things. That's just, you cannot legislate morality. The libertarians have been saying that for decades, and as a libertarian, I say it to you now. The cop that shows up with a gun might stop the evil person from doing evil things, as long as he isn't just filing out a report as the coroner carries out the bodies of you and your family. By the way, the average response time for police across the nation is 7 minutes, and from all those shootings the media laps up and blames guns for, we know that a lot can happen in far less than 7 minutes. You don't believe me? Just look it up. And in fact, as we know from other stories in the news, like the one that I'm actually going to be recording after this video, but probably came out first, sometimes cops do the opposite thing, and when you call them for help, they shoot you. But as these politicos would have you believe, the only way to a peaceful society is just for law enforcement to be the only ones with firearms, and sometimes they don't even want the cops to have guns, they just want the politicians to be the only ones with guns because these laws never apply to them. I personally am sick and tired of agenda-driven politicians and media standing on the graves of children and other victims to drive the families and friends of those victims into a frenzy or emotion-laden insanity. I mean, that's how we get things like that AI call line that uses AI voices to harass NRA members and politicians. Or that weird video game that I featured, or those ads trying to get Europeans to adopt American children to protect them from gun violence. I mean, none of those are a truly healthy psychological response, no matter how big and awful the tragedy. And I firmly believe that media and politicians are to blame for some of that. Now imagine just for a moment if the mother and father of that 12-year-old girl I mentioned in the beginning had firearms when that girl was taken, or if the girl had had some form of protection herself. Now I'm not advocating for 12-year-olds to be locked and loaded here, but a armed society is a polite society. So maybe that outcome could have been different. It's very possible. Fending for oneself happens somewhere between 500,000 times and 2 million times a year in America. And that is a stat that even the US government has not been able to bury. So the next time some f***tarded politician says, we just need blah 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 law to stop this from happening, just tell them to kindly fuck off. Not even kindly, just tell them to fuck off. I am keeping my guns and I'm going to use them to keep my family safe from anyone who would endanger them. That is it for this little video, guys, and that little bit of perspective when it comes to the registry of laws in the country. So hopefully you enjoyed this educational, though censorship beep filled video, because YouTube does have rules and I do have to follow them sometimes, unfortunately. You guys know the drill for all of the outgrown things. Please do them. Drop a comment down below. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Stay safe out there and happy shooting.